morning, Sister Jeanne Burns.
Good morning, Jody.
Yes. A lovely way to begin our Tuesday morning, talking and chatting with one another. I look forward to that.
Yes, it's we don't often get legitimately time to sit down and
Right.
talk.
When I say the name Jeanne Burns, I presume that's English. Is it Burns Scottish?
It's also Irish. I
Irish.
don't know if they crossed the border or what, but anyway, it's there's quite a few Irish Burnses.
And your mother's maiden name was?
Mackey, and that's pretty Irish.
Pretty Irish.
Yeah, Mackey.
And I take it you've taken some time to visit Ireland.
I was there once with Loretta Broderick. Her family sent us because all of his children, all of her family, every one of the children had the opportunity to go to Ireland, and Loretta invited me to go.
Mm-hmm.
She said, "Would you like to go?" I said, "It's done. It's done. I'm out of here. I'm on my way."
I don't even have to think about it.
Right, right.
Now, Loretta Broderick was one of our lawyers.
Yes, she was.
Who unfortunately left us too soon.
Right. She was, her first mission was at St. James in Miami, so I got to know her very close range. And she was a utterly delightful, unpredictable, wonderful person. But all her brothers were lawyers. And she finally said, after teaching first grade, she said, I'm out of here. I need to go to law school. So I said, well, call and check or write or whatever. And she got permission to go to law school.
Amazing.
Yeah. And so she was a wonderful character, a beautiful woman, but very different in a lovely way. So I just loved her.
I'm going to presume that your roots were on the south side of Chicago.
Oh, no.
No?
North side.
North side.
Queen of Angels. And all my brothers and sisters and myself were baptized in Queen of Angels Parish on the north side. And they all went to grade school there, and the Adrians taught there.
But you were too young to...
I was too young.
Mm-hmm.
We moved when I was 4 to Rockford, Illinois. So,
When you say brothers and sisters, what's the royal number of brothers and sisters?
well, there are 11 of us all together, and I'm the sole survivor and the youngest.
Oh.
I was the baby.
Wow, that's difficult to
Yes,
lose that many siblings.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's and all of a sudden I only had one in-law too.
Oh.
One in-law, and all the brothers and sisters deceased.
Mm-hmm. What was your father's occupation?
His whole life that I knew of, he worked for the Ice and Coal Company, Consumers Ice and Coal Company in Chicago. And then they opened an outlet in Rockford, Illinois, and so he was sent to manage and start that. So he worked his whole life in management of that.
That seems like misnomer, ice and coal. Coal.
Both seasons.
Both seasons.
Both seasons.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did he ever take you to the factory or the warehouse or the?
Every Sunday morning he had to go in and check everything, and I always was waiting to say, "Dad, can I go?" And he most of the time would take me, and I'd sit in his chair that swiveled, and I thought I was boss of the place. But I went down to the ice place, and we went in there and checked whatever we needed to check, and that was summertime.
Were those
anyway,
the days when in our homes we had ice boxes?
Yes,
And
the ice was delivered, but that wasn't his. His thing was more storage of foods and things rather than producing the ice to be brought
to
sold.
home.
Yeah. At least I think so. I'm not positive about that, but.
So when I hear the name of the city, Rockford, I think of Muldoon right away. Is that where you
That's where I
Again?
went to high school. We had a grade school, St. Edward's, in the city, which I'm ashamed to say I never saw it or went there. It was way on the other side of town. Rockford, and it sounds like a hick town, but it's the second largest city in Illinois after Chicago. At least it was when I was growing up, and I think it still is. So it's quite a large city.
So did you go to a Catholic school for grade school?
Yes, the Sisters of Loretta. I think they're from, I'm not sure where they're from. But anyway, all those years with those sisters, and they were lovely, but I wasn't attached to them in any great way.
Right. Nor had you thought about becoming a nun.
Never
or
occurred to me.
Never occurred to you.
No.
So that must have happened while you were in high school.
Yes, the very last several months of my senior year.
Who inspired you?
God.
Oh, okay.
You know, there wasn't anybody in particular. And it happened at Mass. On the Feast of St. Joseph, we were up in the chapel at Muldoon at Mass. And when I left the chapel, it just dawned on me that that's what I was going to do. And it was no big anything with me. I said, that's what I'm going to do. I had gone and interviewed for being a nurse because that's really what I wanted to do. And the three of us, my best friends, we all went to Milwaukee and interviewed and a couple other places. And all the while I was doing that, I thought there's a strange feeling, and I didn't know what it was. But anyway, after March 17th of my senior year, I knew what it was. And I walked out of that chapel and started doing what it took to come.
For instance?
Going and seeing the pastor, see if he'd recommend me, writing to Mother Gerald. I had visited Adrian. A whole truck of us, a bus of us went.
From high school?
From high school. And not because anybody necessarily was interested that I knew of going to being a nun or coming here in that way. But it was, kind of a fun trip. And so I remember meeting Mother Gerald. And I think she had designs on every one of us. But I didn't at the time. I just thought, well, this is who runs the place. And, so anyway, it all happened very, and when people say, well, who talked to you about it? I said, God. I mean, it was just an insight and a conviction. And I said, I better get going. I only have a couple months to get ready for this.
Did your parents know about this?
Not until, probably a month after I got myself going with it. And my sisters told me that they went and took a ride. They got in the car.
Your parents?
And went for a ride to talk about it. But
Well, what had you done to prepare before you shared this with your family, your mother and father?
I knew I had to show up in this black with this outfit of a postulant. And I thought, how am I going to get this thing? So I asked my sister, Betty, whose jacket this is, if she would loan, would she give me, not loan, would you give me $25? She said, oh, sure, Jean. She was darling. She said, sure. Can I help you with anything? And I said, not really, I just need $25. Well, if I had thought back on that, that's kind of strange. But she said, oh, sure. So she gave me the money. I went and bought this black material, brought it to a seamstress I knew down the street, but I told her, the seamstress said I didn't have any money. Would you ever just do it for me? And I told her, I said, I'll tell you what it's for, but please don't tell anybody yet. I haven't even told anybody yet. And she said, oh, sure. Her two daughters were going to Muldoon. I said, please don't tell them, of all people, until I get myself organized. So anyway, we got the thing going, and I wrote to Mother Gerald, of course. I got a letter back, quick come. And So I finally said, I better tell everybody. So I told my folks and, the family, and 2 or 3 or 4 of my brothers and sisters were not in Rockford. So I called them and told them, and they were aghast. I mean, they said, well,
Not our Jean.
if we thought it was Betty, okay, but not you. And so anyway, I got all ready to go, and we took off and made it on time, but I was dead tired. I thought I was going to get here and think, oh, thank goodness I'm going to get here and rest up.
Did your mom and dad drive you?
My mother and my brother, Bill, and my sister Kate and I. My dad stayed home, and I'm not real sure why, but I don't think he could drive all that different distance. So we took off, and my sister and I in the back seat, we had a great time. We did all crazy kind of things. And we stayed all night.
Here.
What?
And then you were here.
And then I was here, and all of a sudden it was real.
Was Mother Gerald there to meet you when you came in those Madden doors?
No, she wasn't nowhere to be seen until after we got in our Pastoral thing, and then we all met her. And then my mother and the group had gone home, because at noon they were told that when the Angelus rang and we prayed the Angelus, then we should really say goodbye. So, I thought that was kind of odd, that after the Angelus, that must have been something important that I wasn't aware of. So anyway, we went, and then I said goodbye to them. We were at the grotto out there, and I have a picture of myself with my mother there. And I'm so glad I have that picture, because I kind of forget, all these years, exactly what she looked like. She was a good-looking lady, And so anyway, I got here, and I can't say I was terribly lonesome, but I did end up crying several times, because I just didn't make sense out of some of the things we were doing.
And I presume you had Sister Rita Marie as a
Rita
pastor.
Marie.
And then
Rita
Sister
Marie.
Edmund.
Sister Edmund. And we grew up in the same neighborhood as the Harrisons, which is, what's her name?
Edmund.
Edmund. Sister Edmund was a Harrison. I didn't know that. But when my brothers came to see me, they said, hey, we grew up with the Harrisons. Where's this Lucy? And I said, who's Lucy? He says, well, it's the one that run your what you're doing. And I said, oh, I think she's away today. I didn't want them to get anywhere near her.
And saying, oh, Lucy.
Lucy. And they said they were going to do that. And I said, oh, come on, you guys. And so, they're good at torture. I mean, they tortured me all my life, that kind of stuff, And so, but she never showed up, thank goodness. And they wouldn't have done it, I'm sure. I'm not quite sure, though. So anyway, they never met Lucy.
And then the name Thomas Raymond was your religious name. How did that come about?
Oh, it was a precious thing for me, because my dad was Thomas Raymond. My brother Tom, who was the biggest kidder, going after Lucy Harrison, his name was Thomas Raymond Jr. And I thought, well, I could be Thomas Raymond III. And then also on top of it, the 2 famous Dominican saints,
Right.
Thomas Aquinas and Raymond Penafort. I thought I really hit the jackpot with that one. So I got Thomas Raymond. And I had a wonderful postulant time. I just got lonesome one time and, cried, but, it was...
It was hard to find a place to cry, though, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Did you go to the cemetery to cry?
No, it was when we were out at one of the camps. I forget which one it was. And we had to practice, because there was going to be a funeral as soon as we got back, and we had to practice all those songs. We were up till 9 or 10 o'clock practicing these songs. And somehow I must have been on the verge of not feeling right or something. But when I left there, we were out at the camp, and so I went out the back door. I didn't care whether anybody saw me. And I went where there's some trees, and I sat down in the middle of these trees, and I cried. I cried. I said, I don't think I can stand this pressure. You know, all this singing. I hate singing anyway. I don't have a good voice. And so we had to do all this Latin stuff for a funeral. Anyway, it just hit my tolerance level, and so I had and then I was fine, you know, complained about it, but I didn't need to cry anymore.
When you were in the novitiate, was the garden ever important in your life? I mean, did you ever slide down in wintertime on
No,
cardboard?
I didn't.
No.
And there's probably a story I shouldn't tell, but I'm going to anyway. Sister Edmund, this one evening, said, we're going down in the novitiate garden. And so we said, oh, okay. We all went down, and she took her shoes and stockings off. And we all thought, gee, what is this? She said, all take your shoes and socks off. We're going to enjoy the wonderful green grass and the moisture on them, and so we're going to run around in the grass. We did that, and we really ended up having a lot of fun, and so did she. But at first we thought, this is rather different.
It's different for Edmund.
For us, it was kind of a bizarre thing that we all enjoyed, but we talk about it now. We say, remember the running around in the grass and the novitiate garden. We get a bang out of that. But
Are there other sisters from your crowd that are on the Adrian campus now?
oh, sure, there are 8 or 9 of us.
Oh.
Well, several are down in the cemetery, but there are, I think there are probably 7 or 8 of us now. 2 are, one's on ground floor and one's in memory. And then there are quite a few of us that are doing different chores and everything. And we get together a lot. See, when I was here, those 10 years, we checked out Killarney for our crowd that was in Detroit now. So maybe 3 or 4 times a year, we went to Killarney together. And I was a little concerned at first because I was renewal with a tag on me that says renewal, and not everybody was at the same place. But when we got there, everybody was okay. I was concerned about it because I knew 2 or 3 of them were anti. And
Is Shirley Toke in your group and Kathleen
yes,
McCann?
yes. But you know, everything was fine.
Yeah.
Here I am talking about that. And so we went to Killarney, and our crowd that was here and in Detroit grew very close because of being at Killarney overnight. And so we
Been close ever
bonded
since. Yeah.
a lot over that, because many of us were in Florida or all over the place for many years and didn't get to see each other.
Florida was your first mission, was it not?
Florida, in Jacksonville.
Jacksonville.
Yes.
And how long were you there?
I was there 8 years. 6, we opened the place. A former group of sisters had it quite a few years back, the St. Joseph Sisters, the diocesan. But then they opened it again, and we were the first Adrian Dominicans there. And Sister Marie Joseph Berry was the principal and superior for the first 6 years. And then lo and behold, one of us that was there was made the next superior, Therese Ty.
Oh my.
She knew every trick. She knew everything about. We used to do crazy stuff. Well, she knew it all. So anyway,
Lots of fun.
Those 2 years, and so after 8 years there, I went off to St. Pat's, Miami Beach, high school, taught Latin. Somewhere I had a credit or a minor or something in Latin.
Sister Bertha caught you.
Yes, yes. And so I was teaching 2nd year Latin up at nights, figuring out, you know, what you're going to teach the next day. But anyway, St. Pat's, Miami Beach for 1 year. And then I had 1 year stints, and later I thought, if I was looking at somebody with my record of all these one-year things, I'd say, what's wrong with this person? Why is she?
She cannot adjust.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you that there was somebody had to be changed for something and something else, and I wasn't even aware of all the reasons. But I ended up finally, after those little stints, Bronxville, New York, Holborn for a year, and then I ended up at Rosarian. I was there 3 years, and that's when renewals start taking off. And it was an exciting time, and I was the vicaress to the provincial at the time, so it was Christmas time, and we were called in to Adrian for one of these leadership things. So the provincial and the vicaress were called in to, and so I got my little black bag and was ready to stay overnight.
Was this Mother Genevieve's time? Was
Yes,
she the
Mother
prioress?
Genevieve.
Mhm.
So I got there, and Sister Trinita met me in the hall, and she said, "Did you get Mother's letter?" I said, "No, I didn't get any letter from Mother Genevieve." And she said, "Come with me." And I thought, oh, gee, what did I do or not do? So anyway, she read me this letter, and it said, "You are hereby assigned to stay in Adrian after the leadership conference and begin preparing the renewal chapter with Sister Noreen McHugh." And
Wow.
I said, "You mean right now?"
With my
She
little
said,
black
"That's
bag.
what it says." And I said, "Well, it would have helped if I had." So I never went and said goodbye, never packed, never, I was principal and a third of the principal team, and, left all kinds of undone things and no clothes.
Well, the habit you had on your back.
Yeah, but they quickly sent me my clothes. But anyway, then I was there for 3 years at Rosarian and was told to start a non-graded primary. I didn't even know how to spell it.
Well, that was before you came to Adrian.
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
this is my appointment there, and the third year of Rosarian was when we were elected regional people,
Oh, yes.
and so then
You had already completed your studies, though, hadn't you, at the University of
yes,
Florida?
I had gotten yes, I had to, because I couldn't be principal in Florida without having a master's degree. So I got it at University of Florida. So that was part of
Then where were you principal before you went to
St. James, Miami.
Miami? Oh.
St. James, Miami. That was a wonderful experience. I thoroughly loved doing that.
Were you in your 20s at that time?
Yes, I never thought about it, but I think I was only in the community 12 years,
Yeah.
and I had gotten that master's degree so quick.
So you're 29 or 30.
That's right. And so life went on. I just thought it happened to everybody. They were doing all this kind of stuff.
Well, let's go back to the time that you got that letter that said, "Please stay in Adrian and work with Noreen." Did you stay right here in Adrian, or did you?
I stayed right here in Adrian.
Yeah.
Yes. And Sister Jeanne Cecile gave us a whole floor that wasn't being used, and it was converted into our area for preparation. And all the dressers, we had all our stuff in the dressers, up there, because it was a place where the
That was
students slept.
before computers.
Right. Oh, yes. And so it took us a while to get organized, but we did, and people came in and volunteered, and we got ready for it. When I think of our chapter just now, for 2 years we prepared for it, I thought, oh, okay. But it worked out.
And we had, as I recall, 2 different sessions of the
That's
chapter,
right,
right?
2 different sessions.
And you were elected administrator in the first.
We didn't elect administrators.
No?
No, we didn't
Well, how
even
did-
hear about that.
Oh.
We didn't even know that was in the future for us. Well, somebody had to do it.
Well, what gifts did the people bring? That
Okay, we had a charismatic person, Rosemary was it. Then we had a person with administrative skills. We looked around and we didn't know who it was going to be. But so I picked that up. And then we had the creative person,
Julia McCarthy.
McCarthy, and the scholar, Dorothy, and then who's the other one we had?
Noreen.
Noreen, the wisdom.
Wisdom.
Yeah, so we had a wonderful mix, and I've noticed the council since then. I look at that and say, the Lord really blessed pretty much the same thing, and it happened not by accident, it happened by the Holy Spirit, So 6 years or turned into, was it 4?
10.
It was 6 and 4.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the major events that took place during your time on the General Council?
Well, I would say trying to enable the sisters to be where they really ought to be, either spiritually, but mostly in what they did in ministry. Because everybody, 98% of us were teachers. 98% of us were not all geared to be teachers. Mm-hmm. So that's why we hired that gentleman that had a traveling counseling endeavor, and he went cross-country for sisters, it was voluntary, who would like to take the test for what their skills were, what their social, all kinds of dimensions, to see if they felt they were where they belonged. That's why I think it also preempted the fact of some sisters leaving, because they didn't feel they fit. And but they were all given the opportunity to learn what their skills were and what their social skills, and all kinds of skills. The tests that were multitask. But that was a very big thing because it dealt with the sisters and
individually. Yes.
Right. And then I think here at headquarters, at the center, there were no offices of anything to specifically pick up some major things. And one was the, central services, we called it. And so we decided we needed to start central services, finance, education, ministry in general. And so we started developing these needs. And so it ended up being what we call central services at the time. But that took several years, but it was a big endeavor. And
And those were challenging years for change. And what we found out from one of those studies was some of us are early innovators, some of us are late innovators.
Right.
And we became comfortable with that.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was a middle term besides, and I didn't fit the early innovator, but I was close after that, whatever the category was. And I could have told them that before I took the test, but it was helpful for the population, for the sisters. It was helpful for them to know where they fit, whether they want to admit it or not, whether, So anyway, that was helpful.
I'd like to take this personal opportunity to thank you, Jeanne, for those 10 years, because there was so much change and so many important decisions that had to be made about not only our present but also our future. And you were very key to that. We were blessed by not only your beautiful presence, but by the skills that you brought to that position.
Right.
But were you lost after 10 years of administration? What did your heart yearn for?
It yearned for ministry that was more pastoral, you know, hands-on, and that's why I decided to go to CPE to learn the skills for a more pastoral approach to my ministry. And so I said, if I'm going to do this for a year, I'm going to go to the best place I can find. And so I wrote to the Mayo Clinic Methodist Hospital, who worked, you know, together.
And that's in Rochester, Minnesota?
Mm-hmm. And so I ultimately was accepted there, which surprised me. And I ended up being the only woman, the only Catholic, and the only nun that was ever, I think they had it before, but anyway, in this group. We had a wonderful year, wonderful year. 2 Lutheran and 2 Methodist ministers myself. At first they
You were
thought,
out of the habit at that point.
out of the habit,
Mhm.
yes, yeah.
Did they accept you readily?
Well, yes, I was surprised because I had to go for a whole day interview. And so I went and interviewed with a doctor at the clinic and, you know, the head of nursing, all this stuff. I came back after all these interviews and I said to the Lutheran guy that was doing, you know, in charge of my day, and I said, how long do I have to wait to find out whether I'm accepted here? And he said, oh, about 10 seconds. And I said, 10 seconds? And he said, I can tell you right now, you're hired. And I said, well, how'd you pull that off? And he said, they do the interview and they call me immediately on the phone, and I'm at my desk all day, and I take the things. And he said, we're very happy to have you. And I said, oh, great. Now tell me, when do we start? So it was a wonderful experience for me. And I say to Rosemary, and I've said it all these
Rosemary
years.
Ferguson.
Ferguson, Sister Rosemary Ferguson. I said, Rosemary, we should have done this before we ever were on the General Council. I said it would have been a wonderful preparation. But we didn't. But
Well,
she went and did the same thing then.
And she became
She became a
supervisor.
chaplain.
Yes.
And I became a chaplain.
Did Julie Heyer ever snatch you up for the hospital?
She did. And, you know,
Was that at Santa Cruz?
At Santa Cruz. I said, you know, she recruits by arm, I call it the arm twisting. But she said, Jeanne, you've been away from our institutions long enough. Now it's time to come back. And I said, well, let me think about it. She said, well, I'll give you 2 weeks and I'll call back. And I said, okay. And then I thought, California. I said, and
Here I come.
yes, I came from Toledo. I was at Toledo directing there, directing. Everything I was doing was directing, and that's what I want to get out of. But anyway, I was
St. Vincent.
at St. Vincent, St. V's. And that was wonderful. It was a very big challenge because, you know, the fellow that called me told me right away, he said, we're in trouble here. We need somebody to come and help do something with the chaplain department. And I said, well, I'll stop by and see you. I'm on my way to Southfield for an interview. And he said, oh, no, you need a day. So anyway, I did. And
They hired you, and
the challenge was so interesting. And so I said yes. And I really was very grateful I did, you know. So Julie,
but
Sister
luckily-
Julie called me the 6th year. I was there, she calls. And I said, oh, let me think about it. And I thought, you know, it's probably time to, you know, leave the Midwest and leave, you know, whatever, and do something exciting. And so I went to, I was 27 years there. And so here I am,
Here you
straight
are.
from there, yeah. And so, however, the chaplaincy only lasted, I don't know, 4 or 5 years maybe. And then it became administration. So I was a VP on the staff at the hospital, and
then you said enough already.
enough already. Yeah, so anyway, then my health took a turn. And
How is your health today?
it's not the best.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for people that I work with and know what it is. It's a very serious back injury that cannot be cured or surgery or whatever. So from the University of Michigan Hospital and their
evaluation.
yeah, they said your life now is pain and pain management, and that's what it is. And it's probably the biggest challenge I've ever had to have, you know. And it won't change. And when people say to me, "Do you feel better today?" I want to say, it's not going to change. But you have to be patient and say,
Yeah.
"Oh, yes." Or sometimes I say, "Well, fair to middling."
Mm-hmm.
But
And it's really bad even when you say that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that means it's,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Well, the interesting thing is, people probably ask that because you do not look or show
yeah,
that you are in
and
such
I
pain.
hope to
Yeah.
keep that.
And you were very busy about many things here in Maria,
Yeah.
but the providence of God is asking you to do other things
Yeah.
now. Yes.
I was told to resign out of those things, and I thought, oh, okay. I mean, you know, obedience is obedience no matter where you are, you know, and I thought, I don't think I need to do that, but I did. I mean, I needed to do that because I just, you know.
Well, it's love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
So that's
Right.
priority right now.
So,
priority right now.
yeah.
How long have you been here at the DLC?
3 years.
3 years.
This month. Mm-hmm.
Oh, beautiful. It's wonderful to have your beautiful presence here, Jeanne.
Thank you, and it's great to be here.
Yes.
Never a day did I regret coming, and it was my decision to come, which I think helps sisters who come if it is their decision to come.
And your friend Sis Bay was here, and
Oh, yeah.
Catherine Deutsch.
Oh, we had
Yes.
a great,
Yes.
yeah, we had another card club right off the bat. Yes, and I miss Catherine dearly, yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to say about the congregation before we finish? Its future or its past?
You know, sometimes I'm a little frightened by it, you know, our future. But on the other hand, we can do it, you know. Even though there are fewer of us, we're now offering our leadership. It's more a level of leadership that we give to the church and give to the community and give to the world. It's not that we're all going to be out on the margins helping with the poor. Some of us can be. But we have margins right here in this campus.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I say when I'm, you know, talking with people. I said, we have people here that are hungry, poor, and needing attention. And so, and maybe we'll pray for the margins, you know, in the foreign countries and all, and where the wars are. And we can send donation, but hands-on, it's right here.
Right here.
Yes, we just have to look around and find out who they are. And we might be one ourselves.
Amen.
Amen.